Today we're taking a look at the best builds that shouldn't work in Borderlands 3. Shooting your enemies with bullets is so 2009. These builds deal damage in unusual ways, and heaps of it at that. If you're looking for a build that's less basic, then there's bound to be something in here for you. Save files are linked in the description, and let's crack into it. We open with Spellcaster Flak, a build that completely ignores the critical damage potential that Flak can easily apply to weapons. Instead, we opt to not fire a single bullet. In theory, that shouldn't work, but Flak turns it into an art form, bringing more ordnance to the battlefield that other Vault Hunters simply dream of. If you're looking for the skill tree, here it is on screen now. But this doesn't even begin to explain all of the interactions that are going on here. We're basically a one Flak army operating on the principle that something in our arsenal is bound to kill your enemies. That arsenal consists of our grenades, our Rax grenades, our Rack themselves, our ground slams, our spark plug coils, and of course our war loader bot, who's armed with its very own incendiary shotgun and a copy of our grenade mod. Of course, we can't forget about its missile barrage, which thanks to Points and Eager to Impress, we can chain over and over again as long as it kills something, and with a single barrage being able to down a boss, mobs make for light work. With so much damage sources, we want a way to boost them all. We'll get to how we do that through an anointment later, but there are a couple of items you can equip. One of them is of course the Revolter, and you'll want one with an action skill start anointment. Every time a flurry of rack flies out of your fingers, you'll be granted 200% bonus shock damage to all of these damage sources. You can also apply even more damage to everything through the Guardian Angel, which grants up to 500% bonus damage the further you are away from your enemies. Obviously slamming's not going to see that maximum damage, but I can guarantee something of yours on the battlefield will be. Alternatives to the Guardian Angel include the Psycho Stabber, which will boost the power of the Fish Slap Grenade. Because we're spec'd into Megavore, the Unforgiven works too, with maximum crit boost of 432%. On all of these items you want a URAD anointment to apply 100% bonus radiation damage on top of everything else. We can activate this anointment every time through the artifact we'll be using, in this case the Deathless artifact, and you'll want a spark plug prefix so you can plant coils on the ground as another source of damage. Not only are the coils from the spark plug great at proccing abilities, but their damage can't be scoffed at. I was able to defeat Captain Traunt with a single coil with the Unforgiven equipped. You don't need to slam with this build, but it is much more fun, and don't be surprised when a single slam demolishes everything in front of you. Good rolls on our artifact include AoE damage in slot 2 or 3 to also boost radius, melee damage if we're using the Fish Slap Grenade, increases to action skill cooldown rate or rad damage, and boosts to grenade damage can be great as well, considering we have 3 sources of grenades: us, our pet, and our rack. Some good grenades other than the Fish Slap, which is best with triple link rolls by the way, is the Vindicated Ghast Call, which can't come anointed. The Hunter Seeker is immensely powerful on the loader bot, and the Hex and Light Speed are gonna work too. The Fish Slap is going to deal the most damage for you, but homing grenades like the Ghast Call are great for when your war loader bot decides to throw it at a wall and it's still going to do something. As you've probably already guessed, the class mod we're using for this build is the Peregrine, allowing our racks to drop grenades. The racks themselves deal great damage, and the grenades they drop even more so. However, this build doesn't stop there. I've just outlined the everything everywhere all at once portion of this build. With just a few modifications you can take a back seat and let your war loader bot do everything. We do that by changing our action skill to Gamma Burst, which supercharges our pet with radiation damage. When you go this route you want to switch over your class mod to the Red Fang, which will make every enemy target your war loader bot as long as Gamma Burst is active, so you can truly take a back seat. If you're going for Gamma, then having a Gamma Burst anointment on your Guardian will provide you 15% more radiation damage. It works the same way as URAD does, affecting all of your damage sources, and will open up the artifact slot to something other than the Deathless. The role reversal is another option when it comes to pet class mods, providing your pet with higher one-shot potential. Speaking of one-shot potential, you can also equip a faulty star, which causes novas around the attacking player. And because our pet has our shield, it'll cause novas around our enemies, which get a hefty amount of mayhem scaling, comfortably destroying mobs each time it procs. When you think of the most powerful action skills in the game, you think of Iron Bear or something like Amara's Phase Flare. You don't often think about Zane's cannon, but that's exactly what this build brings to the table. This is my Giga Cannon Zane build, which is easy to set up, but hard to master. The only thing you need to master though is your aim. When you have that down pat, you'll be able to easily do things like this. If you're looking for the skill tree, here it is on screen now. A few of these skills are doing the brunt of the work, which I'll cover later, but the key here is to grab all the augments for our cannon. Other than that, it's all down to the gear, and there's only a few items are deemed necessary. At the top of that list is the Unforgiven, which provides us with a massive critical damage boost. The highest crit boost it can come with is 432%, and you'll definitely want that, and you'll also want one with the Mantis Cannon Anointment to increase its damage by 150%. Coupling well with that is Zane's Executor class mod, which grants us 75% bonus crit damage, and it gives us a nice 20% cryo damage boost, among other things. It is a kill skill, so each time we proc our cannon, we proc these effects thanks to Zane's Seeing Red skill. There's not many rolls on your class mod that will affect the cannon, that's why we go for action skill damage, which definitely does, but also Jacob's crit damage and weapon crit will do so as well through the Unforgiven. Of course we want a Revolter for that passive 200% bonus shock damage whenever it breaks, and we need one with an action skill start anointment. The artifact that suits us the most is the Victory Rush, giving us bonus move speed and damage after we defeat a badass enemy. The bonus move speed is only going to affect our weapons, but that nice 18% V1 damage increase is great for everything. Prefixes don't matter too much, Icebreaker has the best synergy, but really any Victory Rush will do. Best rolls on the artifact include elemental damage in the form of shock or cryo, move speed and action skill cooldown rate. This build, unlike many Zane builds, allows us to throw grenades, and there's a reason for that. In order to get the bonus cryo damage from Trick of the Light, which does affect the cannon, we need our enemies to not target us. And we do that through the Mesmer, which turns enemies into allies for 10 seconds, as long as they're caught up in the blast radius. Its Piss is another good grenade mod, and the best anointments include action skill and elemental damage in the form of radiation when you're mobbing, or matched element to the health bar when you're bossing. Speaking of bossing, to get maximum damage from this build, we'll want to activate the Colder Shoulder augment and couple that with Proliferation. That makes our cannon shoot freeze rays, which we have better synergy with, and increases its power based on the remaining charges we have. While mobbing, accuracy is incredibly important. We're putting all our eggs in that crit basket, and if you're not landing them, you're going to miss out on a whole lot of damage. If you find that your cannons left you on cooldown, then the augments Brain Drain and Proliferation couple well together, granting a maximum of 5 charges and restoring 2 whenever you get a critical kill with it. Aiming is the challenge with this build, because any cannon shot that lands is going to obliterate whatever it touches, and even whatever's beside it. This build will make you feel like an unstoppable force of nature once you've got your aiming down pat. Moving on to Immortal Snowshoe Moze, a build that wouldn't be possible without the unique interaction between 3 key items. This build will have you summoning a winter to end all winters, where explosive icebergs will appear all around you, freezing your enemies solid. You really shouldn't be able to get this much damage out of this interaction, but hey, that's Moze for you. And we'll also be covering another way you can use this build to abuse the interaction of a legendary item later in this build portion, but first up, here are the skill trees. Obviously these don't mean much without the gear, so let's crack into that. It all starts with the Frozen Snowshoe, a shield that causes cryonovas to erupt whenever we slide. We won't be sliding, but we can trick it into thinking we do thanks to a spark plug prefix on our artifact. You see the coils from the spark plug deal slide damage, and will summon the Snowshoe's novas whenever they zap an enemy. We want a Deathless artifact because it increases the capacity of our shield, and each Nova's damage is relative to the amount of shields we have. Now normally you would have to wait until your shield recharges to summon another Nova, but with Moze's Bloodletter class mod, which rounds off the trifecta of required items, our shield bar gains the effects of the health bar, enabling any regen capabilities to fill up our shield, and because the Frozen Snowshoe grants the effects of the Frozen Heart, returning 30% of Nova damage as health, every Cryo Nova will completely top up our shields, allowing us to repeat this damaging cycle again and again. It's an absolutely crazy interaction that you can't find anywhere else. Icebergs will spawn around you and they'll be so dense that you won't even be able to see. Just use the minimap as an indication of how well you're doing as you watch those red dots disappear. And there are things you can do to make it even stronger. The main thing that you'll want to do is get the Anointment, which increases your shields by 75% after you exit Iron Bear. And that effect lasts for 25 seconds, resulting in massively powerful Cryo Novas that shake the foundations of the Borderlands. Entering and exiting Iron Bear isn't a necessity while mobbing, there's already plenty of damage there, and a lot of that is thanks to Phalanx Doctrine, which grants us 40% bonus shields per stack, and it stacks up to 99 times. When mobbing, running Iron Cub is perfectly fine, and when they're on cooldown, we'll get the bonuses from Big Surplus. When bossing though, you'll definitely want to make use of the Exit Iron Bear Anointment. It goes without saying, but this build is much more usable when you've got the Come On and Slam Guardian rank. With that, you'll be able to slam at any height, so make sure you pick it up. The weapon we'll want to be using for this build is the Guardian Angel, which will increase not only the damage of the Novas, but the coils by up to 500% the further we are from our enemies, and it caps out at 25 meters. You'll also want yours to have a URAD Anointment for that bonus radiation damage, which gives those freezing Novas a sickly feeling. And thanks to skills like Fire in the Skag Den, we'll be dealing a nice amount of incendiary damage too. As long as those coils can zap your target, this build does a mountain of damage. That's not all though. Other than having an absolutely monstrous shield using something like the Madcap, which we covered when this build was first featured on the channel, there's another shield that we can take advantage of which won't provide us with more survivability, but more damage. That is the Manuel, which yes involves slamming too. When we slam with this equipped, our shields will slowly drain away and provide us with 100% bonus shock damage until it's empty. We're also granted 90% damage reduction during that time, and if we weren't Moze, that time would be finite. You see, the draining of the shield is percentage based, so having a massive one doesn't help us here. However, having the Bloodletter equipped certainly does. Because we're spec'd into Rushing Offensive and Vampire, we can fill up our shield even faster than it drains. We essentially get 100% bonus shock damage to all of our attacks 24/7. Even if it does run out, we can simply slam to start again. No other Vault Hunter can use this shield as well as Moze can, and it's just another string to this build's bow. Now for a build that shouldn't exist, it really shouldn't. It's blasphemous at best. I'm of course talking about Lazy Dartha and R'tor's Punchbot. Despite the nerf, it remained, proving to be unkillable. If you're looking for the skill tree, here it is on screen now. But as with all these builds that shouldn't work, you have to look beyond the skill trees to find the beating heart of it all. This build one-ups Snowshoe Moze by revolving around a unique interaction between two items, instead of three. Those items include the Face Puncher, hence the punch, and the Stackbot, hence the bot. Those are the two items crucial to this build, but they are easy to get, and you can be up and running with this in no time. This build purely revolves around stacking the Stackbot's weapon damage boost to its maximum and sustaining that. It stacks up to 99 times, increasing weapon damage by 5% per stack for each critical hit you land without resetting it, and that's a lot. Everything else in this build serves to enhance that. Rolls I recommend on the Stackbot include melee damage, mag size, Hyperion crit damage, and action skill cooldown rate. Now the genius behind this build is that the Face Puncher doesn't reset the stacks on the Stackbot, but it does get the bonuses from its weapon damage. So we can have a face puncher that's 5 times stronger 24/7. The best item I recommend for stacking up our class mod is the bang stick on sticky mode. You'll want one with 18 projectiles, which you can fire 3 times and fade away to achieve maximum stacks. Other options for stacking up Stackbot include a high pallet count Stagecoach, or even a x4x8 Monarch. Ideally you want a no mayhem or low level bang stick to avoid killing your target when you're stacking up. You can reach max stacks with one burst of fadeaway incredibly easily, and as long as the shot was fired within fadeaway, the detonating sticky bombs will hit criticals. Do remember though that stacks reset if you don't land a critical with a regular gun. A grenade that shoots bullets, i.e. the Hunter Seeker, and Loaderbot will reset it as well, and a lot of niche things. Travelling to a new map, i.e. seeing a load screen, or downing also resets it. Don't worry though, because 3 shots of the bang stick on sticky mode is all it takes to be riding that high again. When at max power, this build dominates, able to obliterate the battlefield with ease. You want to use Gorillas in the Mist while mobbing to get the maximum benefit from fadeaway, able to just tear through mobs left, right and centre. You can run this build with a focus on Terror, but outside of that, anointments I'd recommend include action skill and melee damage, and while fadeaway is active, weapon damage. The latter I prefer for bossing, and melee damage is good overall. Speaking of bossing, 3-shot fadeaway is great if you want to deal massive damage in short bursts. You can even use the fish slap itself to drop bosses in one shot. And that's the grenade mod I'd recommend, as it synergizes with what we're trying to do in this build. I'd also recommend grabbing one with each of the action skill and elemental anointments. If you want to one-shot things with the face puncher though, there is a one-shotter shield in here which will help you do that easily. However, that's far from needed. For the most part in this build, you'll be using the Stinger, which provides 50% increased punchy damage when our shield is full. When it is depleted, it will also produce Thunderous Novas matching the elemental type of the shield, and that's why I recommend an action skill start anointment for it. There is also plenty of white elephants in here in the artifact slot, where the sticky bombs it summons scale off splash damage. However, in general I wouldn't recommend it as it is pretty RNG intensive, and I'd go with the static charge. The static charge provides 100% bonus shock damage to all of our melee attacks, i.e. every shot of our face puncher, and each projectile of each shot, either times 7 or 14, has a 20% chance to chain 25% of that damage to nearby enemies. Those chains can crit, proccing skills like head count, and that's why I prefer the times 14 variant. Both those artifacts are good though, and whatever one you get is going to do well in this build. The best prefix for either artifact is of course Stone, which imbues bonus elemental damage to each of your melee attacks. The bonus sits at 80% and it's great for adding extra flavour to your attacks. Knife Drain is also a fantastic prefix for survivability, healing you each time you shoot something. Key rolls on these artifacts include obviously punchy damage, which can double roll, mag size, and if you're using the white elephant, AoE damage. You can't go wrong with skill cooldown either.